Good evening. My name is Gamini Wijesuriya. It is a great pleasure to be back in Fukuoka Prefecture. As you all know, I was working with our friends on Okinoshima nomination. And today, it takes me a great privilege to come back and make a presentation on conservation and management of World Heritage. And thank you for the invitation. And I look forward to make the presentation and also to have a discussion at the end. Okay, thank you once again. The title of my presentation is World Heritage, Conservation and Management. In this presentation, I will talk about what is heritage, what is World Heritage, what is conservation and management, and I will also introduce people-centered approach to conservation of nature and culture. And since we are in Okinoshima, we will also talk little about religious values and outstanding universal value. Let me start. What is heritage? We all know that. We all consider it as the legacy of the past. We all inspire, celebrate, use, and benefit, and also protect our heritage. Every country has a program to identify, program, manage, use, monitor them. Come to Japan to learn about them. You all know about them. So, heritage of Japan comes under different themes. You all know, I don't have to talk about them. Tangible cultural heritage, intangible cultural heritage, folk cultural properties, monuments, cultural landscapes, and so on. There's an agency for cultural affairs, guiding and helping this conservation effort. You all know that Japan also has a special program known as Japan Heritage. It's a unique program in the world. So from here, I'm going to talk about World Heritage. Yes, we all have heritage, but we also have World Heritage. What is this World Heritage? Let me explain. It's a designation given by the international community. It comes from an international convention or an agreement, of which Japan plays a major role. It is about places of outstanding universal value of both cultural and natural. We all have heritage with different values, but the place we are talking about are of outstanding universal value, which I will explain later. Yes, World Heritage, designated by the international community, places with outstanding universal value. What does it mean by outstanding universal value? In very simple word, value of such a place extends beyond your own countries, beyond your own boundaries. You have national heritage, which is probably interesting to many countries, but World Heritage is considered and designated by the international community of having an outstanding universal value, which is important to other countries and considered a common importance and commit international support to protect them. So this particular convention or international agreement is a very popular one. 191 countries have signed, and one of the key activities is to prepare a list of World Heritage, which is now 1,121. There are a number of actors or players in this process, but what is important here is the state parties or the countries, in this case Japan, which includes Japanese people, not just the authorities. And this World Heritage List or places of outstanding universal value are prepared under certain criteria developed by the international community. They can be masterpieces. They can demonstrate exchange of values among countries. They can also represent testimony to a cultural tradition or civilization which is living or which has disappeared. They can also be type of buildings, special type of buildings, or special type of settlements, human settlements, or anything created by association of certain events. But all these places, all these values are not only important to Japanese people, but to the international community. It belongs to Japan, but any such places, importance or significance of such places can extend to other countries. So you know, this is the spread of World Heritage, which is coming from 167 countries and 1,121. You know, Japan is full of such sites, which you can see here. Yeah, you have a lot. 19 cultural sites, 4 natural sites. I may be correct on these figures. I'm not going to read all these things. All of you probably know many of them, and many of you have visited them. This is where we are, the sacred island of Okinoshima and associated sites in the Munakata region. It's a great honor for the Munakata people in this prefecture and in this area that this very special place is considered of having outstanding universal value, which is going beyond Japanese territories. It has identified 8 components because World Heritage can be just one monument or one site or collection of many components. The outstanding universal value comes from all of them together. So there are 8 components listed, all you know, and they are demarcated with the boundaries. You all must have a boundary. And also, you need an extra protection given by the designation of a buffer zone. It is to give additional protection to the sites. So this site is inscribed on two types of values to Japan and to the rest of the world. One is the interchange or exchange of values, the rituals, maritime safety, and so on have been exchanged between Korean Peninsula and Japanese archipelago. Therefore, they are also important to the rest of the world. And another criteria, another value used was the system, the worshipping of a sacred island for maritime safety, worship of goddesses, and creation of a special community, Munakata community, to look after them. They are all reflecting cultural traditions that was created long ago, but still continuing. So this is also very special, and very special not only to Japan, but also to the rest of the world. That is why they are having outstanding universal value. So you are proud people in Fukuoka having a World Heritage Site. Now let me go into conservation and management. What does it mean in simple terms? When you have a heritage place, there are many threats, many impacts. I will explain this later more. At the same time, heritage places bring benefits, and they also have opportunities. For example, there are many tourists coming, and tourist industry is going to benefit. And it is also relates to your identity of the people. So like that, there are many benefits. There are threats, also there are benefits. On the other hand, this is the most important part. It is the responsibility of the state party to protect the World Heritage Site if you are to maintain the outstanding universal value. So this is important. And at the same time, World Heritage Committee or UNESCO wants the benefits of World Heritage also distributed and delivered to the people or the society, mostly people in the area, but also to the entire country. Therefore, this place has to be managed, or any other place has to be managed. And for that, you need a sort of technical management plan that will guide the conservation and management of the site by the authorities with the support of the religious communities and communities in general. So this is your responsibility. As you can see, heritage is inland, heritage is among us, and they have different types of impacts. We are using them, therefore they have an impact, both positive and negative. There are visitors, they are happy, but at the same time, there are negative impacts. There are natural heritage, like typhoons, and there are development activities impacting. There are political decisions taken that impacts. heritage. I don't go into details, but there are always, heritage is not isolated. It is in the society. Therefore, there are many impacts. And those impacts can be negative, bringing negative results. They can be also positive, because religious place is worshipped by people and it helps their mentality and so on. These impacts can be current. At the moment, you can have impacts or not have, but there can be potential impacts, like from a typhoon in the future. They also can come from the site itself, or they can come from outside, because we have a buffer zone. We also have to think of the wider setting of any World Heritage Site. This is more technical aspect. We have developed a sort of type of impacts, factors affecting our heritage. They can be transportation, infrastructure, building development, and so on. I will go through pollution quickly, physical resource extraction and local conditions, social, cultural use of heritage, different human activities like agriculture, climate change, severe weather conditions, and so on. So we have a big job to protect our heritage from some of these. Not all are impacting heritage sites, because if you don't protect, then you don't protect the outstanding universal value. If you lose the outstanding universal value, then it is not a World Heritage Site. You can see one of the components, the tombs complex. They are identified. They have a site map. Boundaries are demarcated, but at the same time, they are located in large agricultural fields. You have to continue with agriculture. There's no doubt, because people need food, people need rice. But at the same time, any such activity may not impact badly on the tombs. But there can be people coming to see the sites. And with that, you can generate income and so on. So you have a responsibility to protect them and manage them. Therefore, you have to have a plan to protect them and to deliver or share the benefits with the society. So what do you do? It's a more technical process, but with the participation of the community. You need to document of the property complete. You have to identify what sort of impacts you have in your own site. They may be different from Hiroshima. They may be different from Mount Fuji, but you have to identify your problems and decide what to do to protect heritage and also to share the benefits. This is why you have done this already. You have prepared a very nice management plan with a very energetic team. I was able to work with them. And of course, who will do this? You know, it was done by the prefecture with the support of heritage authorities like Agency for Cultural Affairs of Bunkacho, and religious authorities and community groups. This is very important. It is not enough to prepare a management plan. You also need to implement various activities and, more importantly, monitor the progress, monitor the status of conservation. That is your responsibility. Picture with the support of religious authorities is the sacred. This is the sacred site and community. It is your collective responsibility to conservation and management of outstanding universal value. I hope I explain it in simple words, but this means the people listening all have a special responsibility, special task in protecting this place. Let me now go into a different theme, which I was asked to talk about. Particularly important for the management of a place like Okinoshima Island. I will tell you why, but this is important for all sides, and it is about people-centered approach to conservation of nature and culture. Why? Because heritage is not just only buildings. There is an important link to people. It is people's heritage. Without people, they are not important. At the same time, heritage places have natural values. I will explain this more later. And there are also cultural values. All these factors have to be taken into account when you conserve and manage heritage sites. This is particularly important for the audience today. I want to highlight why people are important, and then why linking nature and culture is important, and then how we can integrate them in the management. One such method is the people-centered approach. I will explain you later. This is the part 4 of my lecture. I will now talk about people-centered approach to conservation of nature and culture. This is about how we approach to conserve places like Okinoshima Island, where there is a very strong link to people, link to nature, link to culture, and so on. In this, I will talk about the importance of people, and then importance of linking nature and culture, the interrelationship. And we have a program called People-Centered Approach to integrate these aspects of people, nature, and culture, because in the past, heritage was only considered as tangible or material remains of the past. For example, this is Victoria Falls. When it was in Zambia, when it was designated as a World Heritage Site, they only looked at the beauty of the place and ignored the community living there, whose heritage this is, who take care of this, who inspire this. So people are very important. If you look at any heritage place, whether it is national or whether it is World Heritage, there are many values, many connections. Yes, take Okinoshima, yes, there are outstanding universal value, but there are other local values. There are many other values. There are natural values. The island itself is a natural formation. There are tangible values, tangible elements. There are intangible elements. Lot of rituals, lot of festivals. I had the privilege of looking at them, listening them, and even participating. Visiting the site with all these ritual baths and so on. So heritage is not only material, but it is more about people and many values. This is why this is a person from your country, distinguished gentleman, former director Matsura, who talks about the importance of people. Without the understanding and support of the public at large, without the respect and daily care of the local communities, which are the true custodians of World Heritage, no amount of funds or army of experts will suffice in protecting the site. This is very important. This shows how important you are, all those who are listening to this. You have a bigger role to protect, enjoy, and benefit heritage. So this is the reason why World Heritage Committee considered communities or the people as one of their 5 strategic objectives. So people are coming in, and this is the 40th anniversary held in Kyoto, where I had the fortune of participating and making a presentation. And again, the focus was the community. The Kyoto vision, I suggest all of you read, highlights the importance of community. There were other programs like Living Heritage Sites program, thanks to our colleague and Professor Nobuko Inaba from Japan, who started this project. We looked at people in heritage places. We looked at living dimensions like sacredness of heritage sites. As you know, Japan is in a way leading in engaging communities in their nominations and in managing heritage sites. These are some of the opportunities I have participated, which is very important. At the same time, after 2015, there was this idea of sustainable development paradigm saying heritage should contribute to people. This also came with the UN Agenda 2030 and Sustainable Development Goals. But important point is that heritage has to be protected, safeguarded, but they should serve the people. So people factor is again highlighted. We had meetings in Toyama, for example, Toyama, where we participate. So to capture the people aspect, ICROM, one of the advisory bodies of the World Heritage Convention developed a program called People-Centered Approach to Cultural Heritage, which later expanded, and I will talk about. At the same time, there was a need to link nature and culture because World Heritage Convention created in 1972 expected conservation of nature and culture to be brought under one umbrella, one program. That was the intention. Because in 1972, they felt there's a very strong link between nature and culture. Of course, countries like Japan know about it, and they have a lot of programs not to separate nature and culture. But for the World Heritage, it was not like this. This is how they ran. Nature people went their own, culture people went their own for nearly 40 years. Cultural sites were designated, natural sites were designated, and even managed with two different guidelines, whereas they have so much common. And after 40 years, in 2014, there was a major program to work together to recognize interdependency of nature and culture. You see, there is no nature without culture. There's no culture without nature, or particularly that strong interdependency, which we all know. You know, take the Okinoshima Island. It's all about nature and culture. And also, there was a need to share the experience of two sectors. Natural heritage sector was developing their own methods and tools, and cultural heritage sector was developing its own. But after 40 years, they realized that there are things that can be shared. For example, look at your World Heritage Site of Key Mountains. Its interdependency of sacredness, community, and nature, they cannot be separated. They have to be taken into account when you are protecting the site for the benefit of the site and benefit of the people. A lot of people benefit. They go on pilgrimage so that they get moral benefits and so on. And of course, your own site, Okinoshima Island, is a classic example, fantastic example of the interdependency of nature and the maritime trade that started, happened in the sea among the countries, and then they sought the blessings of the nature for their protection. With that, they started worshiping the island, and also shared various rituals, and then still continuing some of the rituals. And these are all about nature and culture linkages. You cannot save this place if you don't think of both aspects. And also, there is no meaning only by protecting tangible structures. For this, there were a number of programs started by the nature sector and culture sector, as you know, organizations like ICOMOS, and ICROM working on culture sector, and IUCN working on nature sector began to work together to develop these programs. And your own Tsukuba University had 4 training programs recognizing the importance of nature culture linkages. We started the program with agriculture. Agriculture is about nature and culture, a classic example. Your country has a very interesting history on this subject. Actually, that is why the course was held in Japan, so that the rest of the world can learn from you and World Heritage can learn from you. This is very, very important. There was another workshop by the same Tsukuba University recognizing this important aspect of linkages in sacred mountains of key mountain, sacredness of key mountain. So, like these programs are going on, the idea is to place people, you and I, or the community at the heart of heritage conservation and management. Before, it was material. We are not ignoring materials, but to protect material, we need to keep people at the heart of the heritage. It was supported by the culture sector from programs like Living Heritage, started focusing on people. Interestingly, nature sector, which we thought are only interested in flora and fauna or trees and animals, and they also talk about people. They talk about conservation of nature is about people. And then collectively, the World Heritage began to talk about nature, culture linkages, and still talking about people. So people at the center, and for that, we developed the program on people-centered approach to conservation of culture and nature. We started with culture, but now we extended it to nature. It's about engaging communities. How do we get the best out of people in managing places? Earlier, when we were young, or what we learned was to do these by experts only. Experts go to monuments and protect them. It was okay, it was good, but we have to go forward. So like the culture sector, nature sector also started talking about people-centered approaches. This is Tim Badman, the director of IUCN, talking about this subject. And what we did was to collect all this knowledge, all these people, and started developing training programs to promote this approach, promote this way of doing conservation. We had a big program in Africa near Victoria Falls, where we had all African people coming and talking about the importance of people, importance of linking nature and culture. We also had one in Asia. It was in Sri Lanka. We have our good friend, Miki Okadera, is participating and presenting your case study in this Asian group of people who met in Sri Lanka in 2019. This approach is about care for heritage as well as heritage and people. We are not ignoring heritage, but we think we have to care for heritage. That was the earlier situation, but now we think we need to think of heritage and society, well-being of both heritage and society. That is why this approach is considered as a paradigm shift or a major shift in the heritage sector. So what does it mean? People-centered approach means engaging communities, placing people at the heart of the heritage management programs, and they can support in preparing nomination, they can support in preparing management plans, they can engage in making collective decisions, they can engage in management themselves, they can explore their knowledge, how their knowledge can be used. You know, Japan is a country with a lot of traditional knowledge systems, like what you see in the pictures. They are being used for hundreds of years. But how can we get them? This is a global thing. And of course, the communities can also, the best people to monitor their sites because they're living with them. So you have a bigger role. And enjoying the sites, benefiting the sites, you can do it collectively. And of course, we have to pay attention to communities' traditional rights and traditional knowledge. There are places in Okinoshima where they have the traditional rights for agriculture and for various other things, and we have to respect them. So the people-centered approach is about respecting all these values and capturing all these things and helping manage places, great places like Okinoshima Island. And that means the communities or the people in general have a bigger role to play. We are not saying Agency for Cultural Affairs or prefecture has no role. They are important. They can work together with people, and that is the idea of people-centered approach. There is a program run by the World Heritage Committee and all the advisory bodies, and with the support of universities like Tsukuba University and with the support of countries. It's called World Heritage Leadership Program. I think, if I'm not correct, this program is coming to your region for an activity. It was supposed to be last year. Unfortunately, we couldn't come. Probably not this year. Next year, you will be able to hear more about this program, and they will be having a program. Thank you for offering that support to. Thank you for Fukuoka Prefecture. Okay, this is my last point. Balancing religious values with outstanding universal value, conservation and management of World Heritage. I know Madam Okadera wanted me to talk about this particularly because there are many sacred places in Japan and many other places, but we are here, right here, we are in a sacred place. That sacred values are important. So there are many World Heritage places with religious values in the World Heritage list. Many. There are very special places to the society. And of course, there are problems. I will show you what problems are, and then let's think about conservation and management of religious values collectively, using some of the things I mentioned before. This is Lumbini, Nepal, the birthplace of the Lord Buddha. It's a very sacred place. Many people, particularly from Asia, including Japan, are going as pilgrimages. not just as tourists to see the beauty of the place or the memories of the religion. No, more as pilgrims. So the pilgrims' requirements are different. And you can see this building once was white, and some people thought it should be painted red to keep in with the environment, but that is not important for people. People are as pilgrimage. This is Bodhgaya, another place in India where Lord Buddha enlightened, and there is the tree under which he enlightened, and so on. So it's a very important pilgrimage place, but it's also a World Heritage Site. I don't have to explain this, your site. It is a sacred site, Okinoshima. And this is a site in Sri Lanka. It's in the middle of a natural World Heritage Site. People believe that there is a footprint of the Lord Buddha. Millions of people gather here, and in the occasion of seasons, and it is sacred to all religions, not only Buddhism. Buddhists are the majority, but Hindus, Christians, and Muslims go to worship this place. And it is protected, the mountain is protected because of its sacredness. This is very important. Therefore, its water sources are protected. Therefore, there is water for the entire country. So sacredness, sacred places have dual role for the worship as well as protection, conservation. This is a site in Ayutthaya, which has a lot of brickwork, but is also being worshipped. So, religious places, religious sites has a role in conveying, expressing, and sustaining faith of different communities, which give spiritual identity, meaning, and purpose to human life. Need to recognize intangible significance of tangible heritage objects, structures, and places. Rituals are important. It's not just the buildings that is important. Need to recognize that respect for faith may involve restrictions. When there is a sacred place, there are obviously restrictions. There are rules. There are exclusions regarding what conservation treatments. You know, this is a good example. Okinoshima is a good example. To maintain its sacredness and also to protect the site. This has to be respected by the conservation people and the rest of the world. This is the important point. In the past, we did not respect these things. We thought, okay, site is tangible and we have to protect, and you don't care for other aspects. And these sites change. The evolution and adaptation of religious practices, rituals, or festivals to fit into contemporary circumstances. There's a continuity. So all these things are relevant in a religious place or sacred place or a sacred place like Okinoshima Island. This is why this aspect has been coming up from time to time. I had the privilege of participating in this thematic meeting on sacred mountains, which Japan has a lot. And after this meeting, the mountains were inscribed on the World Heritage List. Wakayama meeting, where we talk about the sacredness of mountains. There were a number of other programs in Kyoto, where I had the privilege of participating and discussing the subject of religious values and outstanding universal value. Because I will come back to that later. UNESCO itself has prepared a program. They realized that we need to pay attention to religious aspects. There's a program on religious heritage of religious interest, major program, and it looks at how heritage places can be protected. And there were other programs like this conference took place in 1992, has published a book on sacred sites. The concept of sacred implies, it concludes, they are very special places, and the concept of sacred implies restrictions and prohibition on human behavior. If something is sacred, then certain rules must be observed in relation to it. So we have a conflict between conservation, use, and religious places. ICROM organized a major conference where my colleague Nobuko Inaba spoke, conservation of living religious heritage, which is relevant to this site. It talks about reconciliation of faith and conservation. So, what is the problem in such situations and in such places? There is a lack of recognition that World Heritage Sites retain traditional religious values, including traditional management system. Of course, in Okinoshima, we insisted that traditional management system that includes taboos and so on be recognized and respected, but not in many other places. Conservation in the past was preserving material or tangible elements. Potential conflict situations, since value systems and conservation and management approaches have their roots in two different worldviews. Modern heritage conservation movement developed in Europe started against religious revivalism. So therefore they had to ignore religious values, but not the case anymore. Intangible aspects were considered only recently, of course, not in Japan. Japan has respected and protected intangible value, but many experts in the World Heritage and World Heritage system has less respect for intangible. And religious practices, activities, heritage places considered as a threat. They think having practices, having religious festivals is a problem to protect the material. This is a problem. And what is the benefit of a heritage place was not considered. And there is a continuity and change, which I have written a lot and which I have discussed elsewhere. It was not considered as part of the heritage process. And recognition of outstanding universal value adds new rules and regulations. Therefore, some people argue that we need to balance between religious values and outstanding universal value. And because government has an obligation to sustain outstanding universal value. But a place like Okinoshima, it has sustained outstanding universal value, but also need to keep the local and national level religious values. So we need to focus on reconciling faith and conservation instead of balancing. We need to respect them. So what can we do in situations like this, in a place like this? We have discussed some of this earlier. The way forward is a collective effort with communities, religious institutions, and authorities, heritage authorities, Agency for Cultural Affairs, prefecture. All of them need to have a collective effort and engage all of them in the decision making. Of course, there can be conflict, but they have to be resolved. And management to guide by traditional systems and taboos, like you are doing in your case. Where possible, you have to take modern methods, but wherever possible, use the traditional systems. Sacred sites are special places and are therefore deserve special attention. And religious values may override other values even if they are sites of outstanding universal value. I know Japan is a country where secular values are placed at the highest level of political agendas, and therefore they are sensitive to religious values. But I think in recognition of links between religious values and outstanding universal values, they can come up with very interesting and solutions because you have the experience in your country. You need to recognize links between nature and culture and people. And of course, explain the methods like people-centered approaches and help you to manage this wonderful World Heritage Site of Okinoshima Island, which can be benefited to the local community, religious community, Japanese society, and the international community. Thank you very much for listening to me.